Alright, so I don't actually get this question asked a lot, but I thought it was a pretty interesting question when someone asked me, and it kind of bridges into my other tiers of content on my channel, which is also money. So what would you do with your first paycheck as a consultant? And my first initial reaction is like, well, first off, what are your financial goals? Like, do you want to save up money? And if you don't have any emergency funds, do you want to kind of maybe move out? And then now you want to build up some money in terms of actually like getting enough money for security deposit and application fee and first 3 months of rent or whatever. Or maybe you just want to pay off your student loans, and all of it are fair game. So what I'm gonna do is, like, let's say for example, you're not gonna do any of that, which you should be following your financial goals no matter what. So how would a consultant deal with this? Like, you got your first paycheck, you just started your job, how would you deal with this? The good thing is that with consulting, like, they do pay for your expenses and everything, but a lot of times they make you pay it first and then get reimbursed. Otherwise, you're just gonna have a big credit card bill that you can't pay off. And a lot of times actually too, they reimburse you. They don't actually pay your credit card. If you do have a corporate credit card, sometimes they don't actually pay that credit card for you. It's actually your personal responsibility, but you're the one that has to pay. All they're gonna do is just like give it to you as like it's part of your paycheck in terms of the reimbursement. So that's something to keep in consideration if you're a new consultant, or maybe you're like, your firm is one of those that does give that reimbursement rather than here's a corporate credit card, you can use it for whatever. In which honestly, I actually prefer not to have a corporate credit card, because then I can actually use my personal credit cards and get those points. So definitely check out my video because I'm making a video on that. So another part I wanted to talk about is clothing and travel. So if you haven't had it already, like, I would definitely buy a lot of business casual clothing. Definitely check out my video over here. I talk about like how a consultant would dress, either on site, off site, with client, with your team, like all those kind of things, and even the airport. So that could be pretty helpful. I think a lot of times a lot of people are not dressed for it. They have a lot of like, maybe they do have a lot of business casual already from like previous internships or jobs, which are good, but you also do want some that are a little bit on the conservative side, because like if you do go on site and you do have a lot of projects where they're like, oh, a little bit conservative, you don't want to be too on their toes, you don't want to offend them, then you may want a little bit more on the conservative side. So if you have anything with cleavage, like don't get any cleavage, don't do that. You also want to make sure that like maybe you have worked at a startup and they had a pretty casual, wear jeans, like you wear sneakers, but then you wear like a blouse or anything or something, I don't know. But you may want a little bit more of like a little closet revamp. Another one is like you want a carry-on luggage. You never, ever, ever want to check in a bag, okay? I think like the only time you'd ever want to check in a bag is if maybe like you're going to be somewhere for a long period of time. And when I'm saying long, it's like 2+ weeks. And the reason why consultants hate doing check-in bags, and you'll learn about this a little bit more, is specifically the fact that like you want to get onto the plane and get off the plane. If you do a check-in bag, you have to go to the counter and then you have to leave your check-in bag. And sometimes like it does have a long line if you're in like JFK LaGuardia area, long lines, okay? So you don't want to deal with that, especially at like 5 a.m. when there's like long lines and you're like, oh no, like my Uber is running late, I need to be here for the meeting. And then once you miss it, you miss it. Like now your client's like, where are you? So you want to avoid that. Another one is like, let's say for example, you just got off the plane, you want to go to baggage claim. Oh, you have to wait for baggage claim, now get your suitcase. And then now you have like issues there. What if your bag did not come on time? What if your bag just did not come in general? And then what if it comes late and then now you're late to your call or your meeting or whatever. So you want to get carry-on luggage. I think that's like a big thing, is that a lot of people don't know, is that you're going to focus on the carry-on luggage. You're going to have to try to pack as light as possible. Like we mentioned, if it's a carry-on luggage, you also know you have to follow the liquids restrictions. So make sure you have a lot of the travel, like little bottles, if anything. But most likely you're going to be at a hotel, so they do have those bottles, but like just make sure you have enough stuff. You do face wash, or you want to do makeup or makeup remover, whatever. But you want to make sure you have that. And then I think like for maybe some of the men out there, if you want to wear a suit, depending on the kind of dress code that the client has, you may want to get the dress, the cover for your suit so that you can bring it out. So that definitely check that as well. I honestly have not really been on clients where the men had actually had to do that. If anything, it's probably like the first meeting where they're doing sales and they do have to dress up, but otherwise like it's been pretty business casual for most of my clients. But I think like travel wise and clothes wise, those are usually my biggest recommendations. Another one I would want to do is like with your first paycheck, you also want to make sure that that you have like looked into everything that your current company can do. So what I mean by is like health insurance or commuter benefits, retirement, 401k, maybe they do Roth IRA, which I don't think a single one has done it, but you can do a Roth IRA technically. A lot of those kind of things too. So always check that out before you even do your first paycheck. And also like a lot of times like they may even have stock options. So if, for example, they do have a stock plan where you start to accumulate like maybe 10% of your paycheck is going to be used towards this, then 10% will be pulled out from your first paycheck towards stocks that will be purchased later on, or maybe at the moment. So you want to look into that as well. So there's like the purchases, then you have the actual benefits that come with the paycheck. Then lastly, I have the last part, which is mostly focused on if you still have money and you want to like have a little celebration, go for it. But then if you have money left over outside of your financial goals, I would focus on your work from home or traveling work setup. So in this case, like I actually have you can check out the video over here on my desk setup, but maybe like your office, your company actually allows you to get like a stipend for travel, for a little stipend for your work from home setup. So make sure you look into that. But if you can't and you want to be as efficient as possible, and you know that like your role is going to be mostly remote, you can actually get monitors. I would even suggest getting a webcam if you are on video all the time and you don't want to use the laptop one all the time. Like for example, for me, mine is actually like on the side here, but I'm looking at here when I'm working on my computer. So there's like a few things that you need to take in consideration. You may even want to get a mic or a like headset if they don't come with a good one. A lot of times like I try not to spend money when it comes to that kind of stuff, because like, well, your company has all these IT equipment, you just need to find it. So if you need to get something like that, make sure you talk to your office first before you even get it, because chances are they may have it and then they may be able to accommodate you. But lastly, like when I say something about on the go though, one huge game changer is a portable monitor. I don't think a lot of people know about portable monitors, and you don't really see many people with it to begin with, but you can have your laptop and then you can hook up a portable monitor. Sometimes they'll look like an iPad, like a big iPad Pro, if anything, and use that as a second monitor. So usually if you're like screen sharing, it's a really nice thing to do, where you would just like screen share to maybe like on site their projector, and then the other one is like maybe your notes, or maybe you're trying to like take in consideration like what is next in the demo or your presentation, slide deck, whatever. All those kind of things, like it's really nice to have, especially if you're on set a lot and you're trying to do this a lot. But otherwise, like typically I would focus on your work from home setup. Even before COVID, I would have recommended that anyways. But I think like on top of that, like again, I highly recommend getting credit cards for travel specifically. A lot of times, like your company may already pay for TSA PreCheck or Global Entry. Look into that, but if they don't, I think it's a really good investment if you travel a lot, especially for work or for leisure. Then you would probably want to use some of your paycheck for that. So I know it's like a long-winded question. I typically would always go like, okay, well, you know, like you have your financial goals, go start with your financial goals. For me, when I first started out, my first paycheck was, I'm going to put $1,000 towards my savings. I'm going to pay $1,000 towards my student loans. Everything else was for bills. So honestly, did not cover everything. I had it like segregated. So the first paycheck was I covered my rent, and then my second paycheck would cover my like financial goals in terms of my savings and my student loans, and then everything else was just I spent whatever I wanted to do. I think everyone should pay attention to their financial goals, but if I really had to break down what you would want to do with your paycheck, think about anything that would help make your life easier whenever it comes to travel and work. Your clothes, your equipment, your suitcase, TSA PreCheck or Global Entry, and then on top of that, anything else you want, like, you know, celebrate, you know, like if you want to get an iPad, go get an iPad. If you want to get a PS5, go get a PS5. But just definitely, like I say, you want to focus on your financial goals first and foremost. Like if anything, before you even start working, think about like, backtrack, okay, if this is how much money I get from my paycheck and you want to do after tax, then go from there and like, okay, how much money will I actually be able to use for what? And a lot of times you may even be able to use a lot of things like before you get taxed. And so that way, like for example, commuter benefits, like a Metro card in New York, you can get that through commuter benefits. So it's pre-tax dollars. So something like that, like you can get a little bit of a nicer benefit. It's not that much though, if you're not getting like a big sum that's taken out every time. But like it is substantial enough if you do it over time. But like something like that is something to looking forward to, like especially when it comes to retirement, stocks, or anything like that. So definitely check it out with like your company, your HR, like maybe even check your manager to see like, oh, if they have any suggestions. But typically it's really just based off of like your client engagement. If you don't even have a client engagement and you were just like free to go, whatever, and you're not staffed yet, honestly, like you don't even need to buy any of this yet. I would only maybe like buy a suitcase because you're going to need it anyways. But if you have a carry-on suitcase, good for you. I'm gonna do a video on how I pack, and you're gonna see it's a little bit different than most people because I don't use a carry-on suitcase. I actually use a backpack. And I'm like, what? Why would you do a backpack? You get a personal item and you get a carry-on, right? I'm like, well, I actually like personal item. Like I go even more streamlined than a carry-on item because this way, like I have everything here. It's under my seat or everything is like up on the overhead. So it's a lot better than if I had two things to worry about at the same time. So thank you guys so much and see you guys next time. Bye.